Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Stu Clark. Today we're going to be taking a look at tripod heads. And tripod heads are an item that you can spend an awful lot of money on. And the heads that I've typically used are, I would consider, the best value in their category. And so we're going to take a look. These are by no means the top of the line, but we're going to look at each of the treads. We're going to look at the ball head, the gimbal, and the video head. And these are kind of the three tripod heads I've used over the years for different styles of photography. And we're going to talk about each of these and where they fit in to my photography, and then hopefully it'll help you make a decision on which of these styles of heads will best suit you and help you if you're looking to buy a new head, to help you decide on what you want to purchase. We're going to first start off with the ball head. This is the Benro V3. This is a solid mid-range ball head for sure. I think right now it retails for about $289 Canadian. It's probably, I think I paid $169, so it's gone up a good chunk in the last few years. It's a mid-range, mid-weight, so it'll definitely handle 15 pounds of gear, no problem. I always, when speccing out any of the tripod heads, I always want to be a good chunk under the recommended weight range, typically in about half. You never want to be pushing to the top end of the weight range. In a pinch, it might be fine, but you definitely want to make sure that you're staying well under their weight range, just for security of your gear, but also just when you lock them off, you know they're not going to just kind of wilt under the weight of your camera gear. So that's very important. So with a ball head, if you're not familiar to them, if you've never used a tripod and you're not sure if you want to utilize a tripod, basically a ball heads have got three knobs on them that will adjust different aspects of the ball head. A lot of the less expensive ones might only have two. I would definitely encourage you to step up to make sure it has the three. And so you've got your main adjustment knob. So this basically loosens off the entire ball head. You've got your pan knob. So this allows it to swivel. And then you've got this one here, which is the third knob, which is one's quite important. And this one is the tension knob. So when you've got the ball head loosened right off, this will apply tension so that you can maintain some tension on the knob, so that when you loosen it off, you don't just have your gear flopping over. So this one's quite important. And the more you spend, the more accurate it is and less likely to back off. The problem I find with this head, as decent as it is, I find with the tension knob, it often just gets loosened off. So it's quickly, you don't have tension on there when you think you might. So that's the one thing with it. Mm-hmm. So with ball heads, they are definitely made more for landscape, portraiture, wedding style of photography, kind of run and gun quick shoots. And their biggest strength is also, I think, their biggest weakness. And so when you loosen off the knob, you basically have freedom of the camera. So when the camera's on here, once this is loose, the camera is free to move any way it wants. So what that means is that if you're in, like, say you're a wedding photographer and you're shooting off of a tripod, you can quickly set up, and immediately you can just quickly level the camera and start shooting, because there's nothing to prevent the camera from moving side to side, up, down, back, front. So it's a really nice, easy way. You're not having to worry about leveling the tripod, but you can quickly level the camera. So it's a great feature for that, like I said, that run and gun shooting off a tripod. Ball heads make a lot of sense. That's also one of the biggest weaknesses. If you're shooting video and wildlife, once you're set up, if you set your tripod up level, you can quickly lose level with a ball head. And that's the downside of it for a lot of different shooting situations. So with a ball head, one of the main pluses of it, how easy it is to drop into portrait mode. And that's one of the really nice features. That they have a notch on the side here, so the head just quickly can drop into portrait mode. So if you're shooting, they say if you're shooting portraiture, if you're shooting at a wedding, it's nice and simple. You can see at the tension not quite snug there, the camera can't still fall over. So if you're shooting in both landscape and portrait mode, the ball head is definitely the easiest to shoot both. Same thing, you're shooting a waterfall, for example. It's nice and simple, quick and easy. You can make adjustments to the framing of your image and how you want to utilize the camera. That is without a doubt the biggest strength of a ball head when you're shooting off of the camera plate. If you don't have a lens foot on your lens, if you have a lens foot on your lens, you can often rotate from there, so you don't need to worry about a ball head. And that's where the video head and the gimbal head come into play. It's not easy if you're shooting off of a plate on the bottom of the camera. These two heads are almost impossible to get into portrait mode effectively. You can do it, there are ways to do it, but it's not ideal by any means. So if you're gonna be shooting a lot of different styles, like say landscape, portraits, people, things like that, ball heads make a lot of sense for that. If you're specifically shooting off of a lens with a lens foot, like a longer lens, then the other two heads might make sense as well. And with the ball head, it will be a bit of a lead-in, is that for next week's video, K&F Concept reached out to me, and they've asked me to do a review of their three-way geared head. And I'm hoping that this will be a replacement for the ball head. So I'll be doing a follow-up video on this, and this is quite a unique head that is really effective. So I'm really excited to give this head a try, and we'll be doing a follow-up video in the next week or so, where we go out in the field, we shoot this under a bunch of different conditions, and we'll kind of get back to you on that one. So with the ball head, like I say, definitely meant short lens. That's really ideally what it's made for. But that doesn't rule it out for being used with a long lens in certain situations. So the problem with a ball head with a long lens is you typically have the collar loose. So you actually can rotate the camera to kind of maintain your horizon being level. The problem with the ball head is that once you loosen off the head itself and you've got the tripod collar loose, you end up with a very unwieldy 9 pounds on top of a center post. So it's less than ideal for shooting with a larger lens like this one. If you're shooting with one of the new Nikon PF lenses, the 500 5.6, the 600 5.6, a ball head might make sense just because they're so lightweight. But we're dealing with these kind of mid-size zoom lenses. A ball head is less than ideal just because of the instability when you're on top. But with a ball head, if you utilize that notch, so the same notch we're looking at here, so let's just see here. So with the ball head, if you drop the ball head into the notch there, you can see how when you've got this dropped off to the side, it's actually reasonably balanced. So you can now, if you're shooting shorebirds, waterfowl, and you're looking for a really low angle solution to get you as low to the ground as possible, this is an awesome way of doing it. The only thing is, once you put 9 pounds hanging to the side, I'm really not going to recommend this for standing up. It is definitely an effective tool. It can work, but I'm really not a fan. Every time I try hanging it off the side, I'm just very uncomfortable with having the weight off center, and it wouldn't be a way I'd recommend shooting normally, especially off a full-size tripod. This would be in a pinch if you've left your gimbal at home, you left your video head at home, and you did need gimbal-style shooting off a ball head. This will work, but it's not something I'd recommend on a regular basis unless you're doing low-angle stuff. And like low angle with the Suray 233 mini tripod here, which is a fantastic lightweight mini tripod. This could be a really effective lightweight solution for going out and shooting shorebirds and waterfowl at a low angle, just because if it does tip over, it's not going anywhere. The only downside of shooting this is the center point is if I'm shooting off a gimbal, when you're moving, you're rotating off of a center point, because you're rotating off the center point, where this you're rotating around the center point. So you've got a much larger axis that you're rotating around. so it'd be a little bit more difficult, a lot more camera movement trying to follow your subject. So say this is it is a solution for some situations, but it's not ideal. So that's kind of the ball head, like I said, and hopefully I'll be replacing this for my landscape, real estate architecture, also for astrophotography with that new K&F Concept 3-way geared head. So stay tuned for that in the next video. We'll be doing a full review on that one. So the gimbal head is without a doubt the workhorse of wildlife photography. This is the Jobo Junior. This is actually a really interesting head just because it's designed for the mid-weight range of cameras. So it's awesome for the 200 to 500, the 180 to 600, that mid-range super zoom. It's only 1.3 pounds, so it's super lightweight, and that's why I've been using this one for a bunch of years. And from a photography standpoint, it's really hard to beat a good gimbal. So how gimbals work is they're different than the ball head. Is that you essentially have to level your tripod, and then the gimbal itself has two axes. It'll pan and it will tilt. So you don't have any correction on the horizon level. But that's where you can utilize the tripod collar. So you do effectively, even though you might not have your tripod level, you can, as you're following a subject, you can tilt the camera to keep a level on the horizon as you're following your subject. So that's where gimbals are great, is that you put it down, you've got your up and down, you've got your pan, and then the rotation of the lens collar is going to be your horizon level. So it's nice and simple, nice and quick. So when you're setting up with a gimbal, basically you need to set them up and get them balanced on the head itself. So this is the adjustment for the tilt, and then this is adjustment for the pan. So ideally you want to keep some tension. You don't want to have this completely loosened off. You want to have some tension on it. But basically what you do with a zoom lens, this is a bit tricky, but what I like to do is essentially we'll put it on the tripod lens, and then I will balance it at 500 mil. So if it's loosened off, you can see it's a little bit camera heavy at the moment. Now it's balanced. So once it's balanced, it's awesome. It gives you've got incredible range of motion. It's really slick and really smooth to move. The huge value of this is that when you're shooting, if you've got a subject come in on a perch, you're firing away, you're not always having to lock the tripod off. You don't have to lock this off to shoot because it's balanced. It's an amazing head for, like with the ball head, because you can lose that horizon level, you need to lock it off a lot more, because if the collar's loose at all, the camera can basically slide off center. With this, because you're not dealing with that, you can shoot with a much a looser action on it, where you don't have to have the thing locked off all the time. That's a huge benefit with shooting with the gimbal head. So with a gimbal, I highly recommend, if you're shooting with any of the current lenses, that you buy a replacement collar or replacement foot for your lens that is Arca Swiss, has Arca Swiss foot ground into it, as opposed to using a lens plate. So with a lens plate, it can be a lot more difficult to balance, and it's really important. So with this collar here, this is the original collar that comes with the 200 to 500. And it's only a 3-inch plate on the bottom. And you can see how this one here is right out to the end in order to get a balance. So with the original lens collar, had I bought a plate that was only 3 inches long, I wouldn't be able to balance this lens properly on a gimbal. Something to be really aware of. So with the, if you haven't got a replacement collar and you're going to and you want to buy a lens plate, definitely you want to get is a 4-inch plate. So this lens plate is the same length as the Kirk Photo replacement lens collar for the 200 to 500. Some of the new current lenses, you can buy a lens foot, so it's not a collar you replace, it's just the foot that will be replaced. But it basically eliminates the need for a plate. And the problem with the plate is, this one's not too bad. So this one's by Jobu, and this one has little notches on the back here that when it's mounted onto the lens collar itself, these plates notch up against the back of it to prevent any twisting once it's locked in place. So if you're gonna buy a plate, you wanna get a 4-inch plate that makes sure it has the little notches on the back that will basically mount it so that it doesn't twist it can't twist if it gets loose at all. So this is a really nice foot. But again, I would highly encourage you to buy a replacement one for your specific lens. That way you're eliminating an extra bolt in this whole system, and you're eliminating a weak point or potential spot of failure as well by just kind of going straight to the Arca Swiss foot on your lens, which is highly recommended. So gimbals, as great as they are, their main weakness is if you want to shoot video. And the problem is that even though you have some resistance with them, they're quite difficult with video because they're a little bit too, they're a little bit sticky. When you've got any sort of tension on them, they're a bit sticky or they're loose. So you have a tendency to overshoot your subject. And I said, from a photography side of things, gimbals are fantastic and couldn't recommend them enough. But if you plan on shooting video, you really want to step up to a fluid head. Gitzo does make a fluid gimbal head. It's about $850 Canadian versus $389 for the Jobo Junior. So it's definitely a big step up in money. They're not very tall. So again, you want to shoot that low angle. They're not bad for that at all. Often if I'm photographing low angle shorebirds and things like that, I will just hand hold it or lay it on the beach itself to get really nice and low. But this definitely will work and works really well. Like I say, I've been shooting gimbal for years. Having said that, and over the last year and a half, I've kind of stepped up to the next the video head here, the Manfrotto, and since then I don't even know if I've put the gimbal on my tripod. As much as it's lighter weight for hiking up in the mountains, it makes a lot of sense. I found the action of the fluid head, and I really like shooting off it. That personally, I found that I've actually just made the jump over, and almost everything now is just shot off the Manfrotto 502 AH fluid head. Let's take a look at that. So if you watched any of my videos over the last year, you've most likely seen the Manfrotto 502 AH. This has become my workhorse, my go-to tripod head over the last couple, I guess going on 2 years now. I actually got it after I returned from a road trip in 2023. Had some fantastic, I shouldn't say fast, had a terrifying encounter with a mama black bear. She was very unhappy with me. And with that footage, obviously a little bit of excitement going on, using the Jobu Junior really struggled to get smooth footage. And it was when I got home, I realized that if I'm going to be taking the video side of it, things serious, getting into this YouTube channel a lot more seriously, a proper video head was a must. With the video head, the big difference with the video head over the other two is that it has got fluid dampening for both the pan and the tilt. So what that means is that you've got basically built-in resistance that is adjustable. So you can adjust it with the tilt adjustment. Fluid is here, and then the pan is on the bottom here. And when you adjust this, you can adjust the resistance up. So as you're following a subject, the head itself provides resistance, and it really smooths down the footage. So you're not jumping past your subject and having to pan back. It just makes for beautiful footage and really smooths it out. It's a must. Any sort of, if you want to do videography seriously, a fluid head it's not really an option. With this head, this is I would call it the one of the better value video heads on the market. If you have a look, if you do a deep dive into video heads, they can get shockingly expensive, especially when you're looking at, the commercial Hollywood side of things. It can be, $10, $15, $20,000 for a fluid head. So you can spend an awful lot of money here. This one is, I believe right now they're $340 Canadian. So it's actually cheaper than the Jobo Junior, which is $389 at the moment. And the Benro B3 is actually $289. So everything's kind of gone up in price. But this one at $340 is an excellent value. So like the gimbal, it only has tilt and pan. There is no kind of horizon adjustment on it. You don't have any tilt for the horizon. So that's the one downside of a video head. I've got the Leo Photo make a bowl adjustment where you can adjust gives you some angle adjustment. You lock it off and that locks it in place. And then you can move it to give you adjustment on the horizon. It works really well. And the reason I went with this model versus if you've got a tripod with a bowl adapter on the bottom, the bowl head you can use has a lot of them will use, they've got a knob on the bottom where you can adjust the tension for the bowl adapter instead of adjusting it from here. The reason I didn't go that way is you can see how if you had an extension down below, you can't lay this flat. And I do a lot of, waterfowl, shorebird photography. As you can see, this is already getting to be 8-10 inches above the ground, especially when you've got the bowl, the leveler on there as well. The problem with the leveler, I like it a lot. I use it when I'm shooting real estate photography, architecture. It would be great if you're doing any landscape photography. Having that a little bit of adjustment on there is excellent, especially so you don't have to level the tripod perfectly every time. The problem is with the weight of the 200 to 500. When it's 8.8 pounds for camera and lens, you end up where it will creep. So if you're carrying it over your shoulder for any distance at all, it will, even when it's locked off, it will move around a little bit. So that's the only downside of it. And because of that, I generally don't use it right now. For my general shooting, I'll just level the tripod when needed. So I said it's a nice feature to have, and definitely, I've got it in the kit. I'll leave it in the truck when I'm out and about so that I do have that option. And that's the Leo Photo 70 millimeter bowl leveling plate. So it works great. I say for certain situations, certain shooting, I definitely will use it. But I find for my general wildlife photography, I don't use it anymore. So with this head, it's got some quirks that you've got to learn to work around. One of the first ones is if you shoot with Arca Swiss like I do, so I've got Arca Swiss plates for everything. I've never been a big fan of the Manfrotto plates, and that goes for this head as well. And one of the problems I found, I actually never really looked at Manfrotto in the past because I was kind of all in on Arca Swiss. Well, there's a trick here you might not have noticed or thought about before, is that what I've done here is I've bought a 4-inch Arca Swiss mounting plate, and I've mounted it to the Manfrotto plate. So the Manfrotto plate that comes to the tripod head is mounted to the 4-inch Arca Swiss plate. So now what that means is and there's a good example here where you can see how trying to figure out which way this head goes into place. That's because I never have to touch it. What's really, and this has got, so it's got a button on this side which will prevent it from slipping out. So it's got a safety catch right here that you have to push that in order for this to slide out. So once you've got this locked in place, I'm going to leave this in to just give you an idea of why I like this. So that button is getting jammed now, isn't it? There we go. Okay. So that button now is make it so that this plate won't slide off either way. It's got a safety lock in there. Then you've got a fiddly little knob here for adjusting it. So if you were to try and use this with Manfrotto plates, and this every time you take your camera on and off, you've got to play with the button there and this little knob on the side. I wouldn't recommend this tripod head. It would drive me nuts. I'll be totally honest with you. But with this one here, because I've got the Arca Swiss plate mounted on top, I'm just dealing with Arca Swiss. So this is Arca Swiss. It mounts right in, and I'm set. Just like with any Arca Swiss, I've got the little nuts in place there. So this will provide some safety catch on there. Because I'm just dealing with a 4-inch plate with Arca Swiss, it's fantastic. So yeah, as I said, I wouldn't recommend the Manfrotto. If you're going to be sticking with Manfrotto plates, I find it a little bit fiddly for taking the camera on and off personally. But when you make the switch over, and this is a newer 4-inch Arca Swiss clamp, and it works so well that it really I think it makes the Manfrotto video head so much more functional in my mind. So this head comes with an arm that allows for easy motion, nice smooth panning, works beautifully. The problem is, when you're using it this way, the lock knob for the tilt is on the right hand side of the camera. Same, and then the pan knob for locking off is on the front. So you basically have to lock off with this one. So you have to kind of take your hand off the camera to lock it in place, and then you have to use your left hand in order to kind of stop for the pan adjustment, for locking off the pan adjustment. So what I've actually found is that I use the arm. If I'm doing any real estate videography panning wise, it's excellent. I utilize it for that. But when I'm shooting for wildlife, I actually shoot it in reverse. And the reason I like to have it in reverse is now my thumb is on the tilt lock, and then so I can adjust there, and then the lock is on here. So the one hand can lock off the head, and I've got full adjustability when I've got the camera hand, when I can operate the camera at the same time. So if you're shooting video and like that, you can be tilting, panning, and if you want to lock it off, it's nice and simple. You can just lock it in place as needed when you're out there just from your left hand. So that's a definite trick if you're going to be utilizing this head. So the arm is great for certain photography and videography. I find with the big lens and a lot of my when I'm out shooting, as just an extra piece of gear hanging off that's just a little bit too much. So I find I don't utilize that in the field at all. For the $350 I paid for this, I am very happy with it. From here, I'd like to give one of the Shacklers a try, which is kind of the next step up, getting into, I think it's the $600, $700, $800 range, and that'd be the next jump up in quality. And what you'll find where that comes in with that sort of jump in quality is there'll be some stiction. So as you start to pan, there'll be a little bit of initial stick, and then it will start to move. And the more you pay, the smoother the motion is at all time. For what I do with wildlife, and as I said, a lot of my video is for YouTube and the like. It's not hypercritical. If you're shooting for National Geographic, BBC, obviously you need to have everything is critical, perfect motion. And I find with this one, because I'm shooting with the bigger lens, it works very, very well. I've been very happy with it. So you say this is the Manfrotto 502AH. Highly recommend this. If you want to get into both photo and video, it's fantastic. And I find too, because you're dealing with the fluid head on this, just like with the gimbal with the gimbal, you balance it up. So you just have to balance it in place. Once it's balanced, it doesn't go anywhere. You've got really nice motion on the pan and on the tilt. It works so well. So this is now my preferred photography head as well. I haven't used the Jobo Junior since buying this. Even though it's a little bit more weight, but because I've been shooting a lot more video, I find that this is my go-to now, and this is the only one I use. The only time it's not ideal is that really low angle, like I said, and that's where the ball head on the angle, or even the Jobo Junior is a little bit lower to the ground. And a lot of times I'll just shoot handheld I'll just basically put this right on the beach and shoot that way if I'm trying to get really low angle stuff, just because you can see how much taller it is even at its lowest level. But all in all, really happy with that head, and I would highly recommend it. So yeah, I hope you got some good info out of this, and if so, please like and subscribe, and there'll be affiliate links down below if you're looking to purchase any of these items. I appreciate it. Till next time, we'll see you out there. Take care.